Hey, good morning, Rise Prep. My name is Mr. Kim,
And I am Mrs. Weeks.
and today we are here to give you guys some information about breast cancer awareness, which is actually this month. So, I see that you have pink nails, Mrs. Weeks. Is there a reason behind it?
Well, I would always like to do my part with support for breast cancer awareness. And though you notice this, I'm hoping that you're not noticing the chip polish, Mr. Kim.
No, ma'am, I do not. They look great. So, again, we just want to reiterate that we are here to give you guys a little educational background about breast cancer. Mrs. Weeks, every year for the past couple of years, we have did an assembly where the scholars actually raise money for the for breast cancer, and every year we have raised over $1,000.
Yes, we have, and our scholars have diligently supported us in that effort.
And so with this year being just a little bit different due to COVID and us being virtual, we're not able to really raise money this year, but we are able to have, this clip to talk about the educational background about breast cancer awareness, and we also have a special guest later on in the segment.
Wow, that's great.
So, Mrs. Weeks, did you know 1 in 8 women in the United States will develop breast cancer in her lifetime?
Yes, that is a fact that is definitely changing as the years go by. Also, Mr. Kim, did you know that 64% of breast cancer cases are diagnosed at a localized stage, and there is no sign that the cancer has spread outside the breast, for which the 5-year survival rate is 99%?
Wow, so 5 years after 5 years is a 99% survival rate. That's really good. And I think with the technology that we have now, with the us raising money for the cause like Rise Prep Scholars have done in the past, that's giving us more groups to find more vaccines or find more revenues from pharmaceutical companies to increase that survival rate to more than 5 years. So I think that's a great way that we are leading to that area.
Absolutely.
Also, did you know that this year an estimated of 42,000 women will die from breast cancer in the U.S.? Yeah, so we also during that time, we also want to just pause a moment for those who have been deceased due to breast cancer. I know that we probably all know someone who has passed away due to breast cancer. So can we just pause for a quick 30 seconds just for a moment of silence, please? So, Mrs. Weeks, do you personally know anyone who has actually survived breast cancer?
Yes, I do. My grandmother is a 30-year survivor. She was diagnosed with it at 53.
Wow.
What about you?
Yes, Mrs. Weeks. My aunt, she was diagnosed at 38, and she's also a 23-year survivor of breast cancer. So it seems as though, it's a range of women who can actually have breast cancer. So it's always very important to make sure that those that you know are getting checked on a regular basis, on a yearly basis for a mammogram.
Absolutely.
So, do you not know that breast cancer is the most common cancer in American women? Out of all cancer, breast cancer is the most common, and this was estimated at the beginning of 2020.
Wow, the estimated case is about 480 cases of invasive breast cancer, and there are different types. So that is an alarming number.
It is. Also, there are over 3.5 million breast cancer survivors in the United States. So it goes back to your grandmother and my aunt and our guest that we actually have on in a couple of minutes. They're actually survivors of breast cancer, which is why we have this month, pretty much explaining those who have passed, but those who are living, so they can actually advocate for women who may not have it at all, or may not never have it, or may not have been able to get checked through a mammogram. So that's what this month is all about, just to bring, awareness to breast cancer as a whole.
Yes. And I think too, Mr. Kemp, that a lot of times people think breast cancer is just for women, but also there's a fact, if you didn't know, that although rare, men get breast cancer too. In 2020, an estimated 2,620 men will be diagnosed with breast cancer this year in the U.S., and approximately 520 will die. But Beyonce's dad, Matthew Knowles, is a 2-year survivor of breast cancer.
Wow. So men can actually get breast cancer as well.
Yes.
It's very interesting to know is that it's not just a women's disease, because so often we sort of see it as it being just only women who can actually have this cancer, and to find out that you men can also obtain this cancer as well. It's very informational. And also, guys, you need to, when you have your yearly physicals, that's a conversation that, potentially should have with your doctor.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, Mrs. Weeks, for allowing us to have this conversation and to give our scholars some facts about breast cancer and just bring awareness around it. Actually, in a couple of minutes, we have a special guest, and we want you guys to stay tuned so you'll get a personal perspective of what breast cancer has done to this special lady.
Thank you, Mr. Kemp. Welcome back, Rise family. We have now transitioned to our Peace Garden.
And as we have talked about before, we gave you guys pretty much the facts of what breast cancer awareness means, what this month entails. Now we want to hear from our very own Miss Jones within the school, who is a 7th grade ELA teacher, and she will be able to give a perspective from a personal aspect. So we'd like to welcome Miss Jones.
Greetings, Rise.
Hey, Miss Jones, how are you?
I'm amazing. How are y'all?
Good.
Doing well,
You
doing
look
well.
amazing.
Thank you. So do you all.
So we're going to ask a few questions. Please answer them in depth if you want. First off, tell us about your journey when you were diagnosed with breast cancer and how did you find out?
Okay. It's a new journey. I literally just found out a few weeks before school started in July. The journey itself is still fresh, but it's a journey that I've been on before. My mom was diagnosed not once, but twice. She was diagnosed for the second time in June of last year. So after she had that diagnosis, I went and had a mammogram, which is a test where they test your breast tissue to see if there are any cancerous cells. So that's where the journey began in December. I received a call back in January where they suspected something, but they weren't sure. So then COVID happened, and then in July, early July, I received another phone call that said, you need to come back. This is a little bit more serious than what we thought.
How did you feel when you first received the news?
The first feeling I had was fear, a lot of fear, and a lot of faith after that. But I was almost not shocked because I'd been through the test and I'd done more than one test. It was like, okay, this is happening, now what? What do I do?
Do you think, you said your mother not only had it once but twice, so you was very familiar with this process. When you received the news that you actually had breast cancer at that moment, I know you said you felt fear, but did you feel some comfort knowing that, hey, my mom went through this once and twice and defeated this?
Yes, I felt a lot of comfort. The second time my mom was diagnosed, she had a double mastectomy, which is when they cut off both of your breast tissue, both of them. And because I've been through that process with her just last summer, I was like, okay, I can do this. I know what it entails. I know how long the surgery is. I know what the recovery time is. So I felt like it was something I could do.
And also, so you said the second time your mama, she had a double mastectomy, right? Okay, so when you actually found out that you actually had the news, was that something that you sort of share with family and friends because, hey, I need to sort of be more of an advocate because now I'm a young lady now having this, or did you sort of keep the information to yourself until you knew that, okay, you was in the clear?
Okay, funny story. So I only told, the first day, I only told my boyfriend and my spiritual mom the first day. I didn't tell my mom for almost a week. Because my mom doesn't live here and I didn't want to tell her over the phone. So I made a decision to have the double mastectomy because that's what she did, and then I told her, which was interesting, to say the least.
You talked about your support network a little bit, but could you go a little bit in depth of the support network that you had once you gotten your diagnosis?
Well, one was y'all. Like Rise, Principal Harding was extremely supportive. Like, I think one day I actually cried on the phone because I was like, oh my God, I've never been in a school that was such a family environment. And so Principal Harding did like a little Zoom with just my team, and I hung up that call and I was just in tears because it was very comforting. It was very comforting. So my close friends were extremely helpful. Like, my mom came and stayed with me for like 3 weeks. Of course, my boo. And that everybody like that knew and that was willing to chip in, pitch in, do whatever they could. It was overwhelming, very overwhelming.
I know many of us at least know someone who has had breast cancer before. Me personally, my aunt, she's a 23-year survivor, so I've known her this process for a while. But one thing that I can say about you is that your attitude never really changed from the first day I met you last year while you was going through the process. Could you just talk about your perspective and how you kept your attitude, how you keep a positive attitude? Because I'm sure that's something that helped you progress throughout this process.
I think so, and my faith was definitely a big part of that. I'm always a glass half full type of chick anyway, so I think just because that's who I am. Now, of course, there were days where I was afraid, there were days where I was sad, there were days where I was unsure of some of the decisions that I had to make, but it's just like a no-brainer. Like, a lot of people wanted to give me their negative vibes, so I had to just kind of give it back to them, because a positive attitude does help in so many ways. Thank you.
What message, Letitia, would you like to provide for women, and in particular young African American women?
Check yourself, especially like middle school, because you guys are having so many hormonal changes. It's a good time to start checking those boobies, making sure they're doing what they're supposed to do and they feel normal. I know it sounds funny, I know it sounds awkward, I know it sounds weird, but just make sure they're normal, because early detection is extremely important, and boys too, because men can have breast cancer too.
It's very true, and it's one of the facts that we stated earlier was that men can also get breast cancer as well. Do you now feel a sense of advocacy part on your behalf, that you feel like, oh, you're mandated to advocate more for this cause because now you have personally received being a part
and
of it?
because I'm so young, so I feel like I have to tell people, like, it can happen at any age, at any stage in your life. Most people think, and what I've learned is like it's an older woman disease, and it's not. I've ran across so many women that are younger than me that have been struck with this fatal disease. So it's important for me to speak out, and it's important for me to let people know that this is real, because people think it's no real face to it. It's like, oh, it's breast cancer awareness month, we're gonna wear pink and that's it. No, like, this really happens to people, and it affects so many people, not just the one person that has cancer. So, yeah.
And could you elaborate a little more on being a black female? A lot of times, it's a stigma out there that states that, black females, they are not tended to as they should by their doctors, or they don't get the yearly mammogram, or at what age should you start getting a yearly mammogram? Do you think that, it needs to be more advocacy part in the black community for breast cancer?
What I
awareness?
found, that's a good question. It took me a while to find women that look like me. When I first found out, I started doing all this research and trying to find support groups and discussion posts and discussion boards, and it was hard to find people that look like me. I literally just found a community of women 2 weeks ago, from July to now. So I found that even in doctors always, I think you and I talked about this one day, they always tell you the bad side. So a lot of my doctors, my oncologist, my surgeon, my plastic surgeon, because I have a whole team, they always tell you, well, if the tests come out negative, then this is what we're going to do. They always want to kind of throw that at you, as opposed to telling you, well, as a black woman or as a woman or as a young woman, you should probably think of this. So, yeah, I find that a lot of black women are afraid. A lot of women that I've encountered, they're like, oh my God, you're so young, let me get my mammogram. And it's like, wait, can you have it? You 50. Like, why you ain't had yours? So it's a lot of women are afraid, but some of them really do, they're on it. So it's interesting, the dynamics that I found. Yeah.
And so as far as your journey, and this may be a personal question and you can definitely not answer it. Are you cleared, or are you still a part of this journey? Like, where are you at on this journey?
So the journey never stops.
Never stops.
The journey never stops. All of my tests have been negative, which is what we want. But the type of cancer that I had is triple negative cancer. So the likelihood of that coming back without treatment, because all I did was have surgery. I didn't do chemotherapy, I didn't do radiation. So the likelihood of that coming back is about a 20% chance. So with that being said, I have to make sure I go to my doctor's appointments, get all my scans on a regular basis. I think I'll be fully cleared after like 5 years. So the 1 year anniversary, yes. 3 years, even better. 5 years, okay. There's the chance of it coming back again. decreases as the years progress. So the journey never ends. It's always new things that we find and new ways that we can just be healthy.
And now you're a part of a sisterhood.
I am. It's a little sorority, but not really. Nobody wants to be in it. But since you are, you're still pretty jealous. So survivorship, that's what we call it.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Patricia, for sharing with us.
You're
We really
welcome.
appreciate it.
You're welcome.
We do, and the Rise family, like you said, we really do care about our staff. And we actually have our principal, Mr. Harden, here to present you with something.
What?
On behalf of Rise Club School, we'd like to present you, Ms. Jones, Breast Cancer Survivor 2020. And your favorite words is hope, faith, and strength. You are inspiration to those who know you, walking in faith, seeking God's strength. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be free from your suffering." From your working family, Rise Club, to you.
Thank you.